Clinically, the region around the inguinal ligament is considered as the inguinal region, and the key structure in these regions are the inguinal ligament and the inguinal canal. Okay, so first we will discuss the inguinal ligament. It is also known as Popard's ligament. What is the definition? Inguinal ligament is a thickened lower border of the aponeurosis of the external oblique muscle, and it lies beneath the fold of the groin. Okay. What is the extent? Inguinal ligament extends from anterior superior iliac spine to the pubic tubercle. Here, see, this one is the inguinal ligament. So it extends from anterior superior iliac spine to the pubic tubercle. Okay, and this is the length of the ligament. Length is about 12 to 14 centimeter. Next, we are going to the attachments. Lateral attachment is to the anterior superior iliac spine. Medial attachment is pubic tubercle. And inferiorly, the fossa lata pulls the inguinal ligament. Hence, the inguinal ligament is convex inferiorly. Okay, so along the inferior margin of the ligament, fossa lata, which is deep fossa of the thigh, that is attached. What are the different expansion and extensions of the inguinal ligament? First is lacunar ligament. See, this triangular posterior extension of the medial part of the inguinal ligament is known as lacunar ligament. And there is reflected part of inguinal ligament. These fibers are forming the reflected part of inguinal ligament, and another is pectinate ligament of Cooper. Here is the pectinate ligament of Cooper going towards the pecten pubis. Okay. So we will discuss these three structures. First is lacunar ligament, or also known as Gimbarnat's ligament. It is a triangular backward expansion of the medial end of the inguinal ligament. Here, triangular backward extension of medial end of inguinal ligament, and it expands backward and gets attached to the pecten pubis. It has a apex and a base. Apex is attached to the pubic tubercle. Here, there is the apex medially, and base is free. Here is the base, which is a free margin, concave, and forms the medial boundary of the femoral ring. Upper surface of the lacunar ligament forms the floor of the medial part of the inguinal canal. Next is reflected part of the inguinal ligament. See, these fibers are forming the reflected part of inguinal ligament. The superficial fiber at the medial end of inguinal ligament extends upward and medially to form the reflected part of the inguinal ligament. Here, reflected part. And these fibers cross the conjoint tendon anteriorly and insert into the linea alba. See, the midline structure is the linea alba, and these fibers is crossing the conjoint tendon. Okay, conjoint tendon was forming the posterior boundary of the inguinal canal. And these fibers cross the conjoint tendon anteriorly and insert into the linea alba, and these fibers are called third crus of the superficial inguinal ring. Next is pectineal ligament of Cooper. Okay, this one is pectineal ligament or ligament of Cooper. From the posterior part of the lacunar ligament, a fibrous band extends laterally over the rest of the pecten pubis up to the iliopubic eminence, and this extension is called pectineal ligament of Cooper, named after a British surgeon and anatomist. Okay, Cooper, Ashley Cooper. These are named after this Sir Ashley Cooper. Okay. So these are sometimes asked in your viva and important for your MCQs. Okay, so what is Cooper's fossa? Cooper's fossa is covering of the spermatic cord, and Cooper's CORD will be there. So Cooper's pubic ligament or pectineal ligament is extension of the lacunar ligament. Next is Cooper's ligament are the suspensory ligaments of the breast, and Cooper's testis is neuralgia of the testis. Neuralgia means there will be pain near the testis. And Cooper's disease is a benign cyst of the breast. Cooper's hernia is the retroperitoneal hernia, and Cooper's neuralgia is the neuralgia of the breast. Okay, so these are named after this Sir Ashley Cooper. Next, we are going to structures attached to the inguinal ligament. Structures attached to the grooved upper surface are the internal oblique muscle originates from the lateral two-third. From lateral two-third, internal oblique muscle is originating. And transversus abdominis originates from lateral one-third. And cremaster muscle originates from middle one-third in males. Cremaster muscle is only present in male. Next, in the lower fossa, fossa lata, lower surface, fossa lata is attached, and posterior margin, lateral to the femoral sheath, fossa transversalis and fossa iliaca are attached to the posterior margin. Here. Here is the medial margin of the femoral sheath. Here will be the femoral sheath. Passing through the femoral sheath are the femoral vessel. See this arrow showing the passage for femoral vessel. So this is the site for femoral sheath. So lateral to the femoral sheath, here will be attachment of fossa transversalis and fossa iliaca attached to the posterior margin. And medial to the femoral sheath, lacunar ligament is attached to the posterior border. Here lacunar ligament is attached. Okay. Next. So inguinal ligament extends from anterior superior iliac spine. Okay, it is a thickened lower border of external oblique aponeurosis, and it is about 12 to 14 centimeter in length. These are the attachment: lateral attachment to the anterior superior iliac spine, medial attachment to the pubic tubercle, and inferiorly attached to the fossa lata. Okay. Next is the expansions, different expansions. There are lacunar ligament, reflected part of inguinal ligament, and pectinate ligament of the Cooper. And attachments are these muscles and fossa. Origin of these three muscles from the lateral part of the inguinal ligament. Lateral two-third internal oblique, lateral one-third transversus of abdominis, and middle one-third cremaster muscle. And along the lower margin is attached the fossa lata of the thigh. Okay. Next. Next is subinguinal space or pelvifemoral space. Okay. It is the space between the hip bone and the inguinal ligament, and it gives passage to the muscle, nerves and vessels from inguinal region to the femoral region. So see here, this is the inguinal ligament and this is hip bone. So the space between the inguinal ligament and hip bone, it is forming the subinguinal space. Okay, and it is dividing into lateral part and medial part. Lateral part, it gives passage to the muscles, iliacus and psoas major, and medial part, here lies the femoral sheath, and other structure passing through the subinguinal space are this femoral nerve and lateral cutaneous nerve of thigh, and some lymphatics which are draining into the lymph node in the femoral canal. Okay, so these are the structures passing through subinguinal space. आगे slide ए जाओ तो. Okay, so the subinguinal space or pelvifemoral space is divided into two parts: lacuna musculorum, lacuna vasculorum. Lacuna musculorum is the lateral part of the subinguinal space, and that gives passage to the iliacus and psoas major muscle. And the lacuna vasculorum, it is the medial part of the subinguinal space and gives passage to the external iliac vessels, femoral nerve, femoral branch of genitofemoral nerve, and lateral cutaneous nerve of the thigh, and the different lymphatics. So these are the structures passing through the subinguinal space. Next we are going to the femoral sheath. It is a funnel-shaped facial sheath formed by extension of fossa iliaca and fossa transversalis in the thigh. See, anteriorly this is fossa transversalis, posteriorly the pink one is fossa iliaca. So fossa transversalis is forming the anterior wall of femoral sheath and fossa iliaca is forming posterior wall of the femoral sheath, and they are extending along the femoral vessels. See, this one is femoral artery has been shown lying in the lateral most compartment. Next, femoral canal and femoral hernia. Femoral canal is the medial most compartment of the femoral sheath. See, this is the femoral sheath. It is cone shaped and it is divided into three compartments: lateral, intermediate, medial. Medial most compartment is the femoral canal, and here lies the deep inguinal lymph nodes. Okay, and this is the superior end of the femoral canal is known as the femoral ring. Lateral most compartment, here lies the femoral artery and femoral branch of genitofemoral nerve, and intermediate compartment contains the femoral vein. Okay, and there is an opening in the anterior wall of the femoral sheath, and through this opening passes the great saphenous vein going to drain into the femoral vein, and this opening is covered by the cribriform fossa. Okay, so all these structures will be the covering of the femoral hernia. Cribriform fossa, this fossa iliaca, all these will be the covering of the femoral hernia, and femoral hernia will pass through this femoral canal, the medial most compartment of the femoral sheath. So femoral canal is the medial most compartment of the femoral sheath, and it contains the deep inguinal or cloacated lymph nodes, and it is the site of femoral hernia. There will be protrusion of the abdominal content through the femoral canal. Next is iliopubic tract. It is the thickened inferior margin of fossa transversalis which runs parallel and posterior to the inguinal ligament. It is forming the iliopubic tract. Next, see the transverse section through the femoral sheath. Medial most compartment is femoral canal. Here lies the lymph node of cloacate. Intermediate compartment contain the vein, and lateral most compartment contain the femoral artery and femoral branch of genitofemoral nerve. This schematic diagram you practice for femoral sheath. Femoral sheath is also important long question. Okay, and see the anterior wall is formed by the fossa iliaca, posterior wall is formed by the fossa transversalis, and three compartments are separated by two septum, lateral septum and medial septum, which are connective tissue septum, and femoral nerve is lying lateral to the femoral sheath. Okay, next we will discuss the two inguinal rings, superficial inguinal ring and deep inguinal ring. Superficial inguinal ring forms the outlet for the inguinal canal. See, this green colored shaded structure is the inguinal canal. Here is the superficial inguinal ring, the triangular one, and this rounded ring 1.25 centimeter above the mid-inguinal point. This is location of the deep ring, which is lying medial to the inferior epigastric, lateral to the inferior epigastric artery. Okay. So first we will discuss the superficial ring, which forms the outlet of the canal. Outlet for the inguinal canal, it is triangular gap in the aponeurosis of the external oblique muscle, and its margins are referred to as the crura. And the boundaries of the superficial inguinal ring, it is bounded as follows. Base is formed by the pubic crest. Apex is directed upward and laterally, formed by the convergence of the two crura. Medially bounded by the superior crus, and that is attached to the pubic symphysis. Laterally bounded by the inferior crus, and that is attached to the pubic tubercle. And these are the measurement of the superficial inguinal ring. It is about 2.5 centimeter long and 1.2 centimeter broad at its base. Okay, this is superficial inguinal ring. These rings can also come as a short note sometimes. Okay, deep inguinal ring, superficial inguinal ring. Next is deep inguinal ring. It forms the inlet of the inguinal canal. Here is the deep inguinal ring, and it is the opening in the fossa transversalis. Okay, where over which structure it is formed, it is important for your Viva and MCQ. Superficial inguinal ring was opening in the external oblique aponeurosis, and deep inguinal ring is the opening of fossa transversalis. Okay. So, and location, it is located 1.25 centimeter above the mid-inguinal point. Here is the mid-inguinal point, which is midpoint between the anterior superior iliac spine and the pubic symphysis. So, the ring is located 1.25 centimeter above this mid-inguinal point and lateral to this inferior epigastric artery, just lateral to the beginning of inferior epigastric artery. Okay, this relation is very important for identification of the ring during the dissection of the inguinal region. You have seen already the inguinal canal dissection. Okay, next. So inguinal rings are two rings: superficial inguinal ring, deep inguinal ring. Superficial inguinal ring is triangular, opening in external oblique aponeurosis, and boundaries are: base is formed by the pubic crest, medially bounded by the superior crus, laterally bounded by the inferior crus, and apex is the meeting point of both the crus. Okay. And deep inguinal ring, it is oval in shape. It is the opening in the fossa transversalis, and here is the location 1.25 centimeter above the mid inguinal point, and it is lateral to the inferior epigastric vessels. Okay, so this is the relation. Next, so for practical identification of the ring, superficial inguinal ring is located superolateral to the pubic tubercle, and it is a triangular gap in the external oblique aponeurosis. Okay. And deep inguinal ring can be clearly visualized from its deeper aspect on the reflection of anterior abdominal wall, and it is an oval opening in the fossa transversalis located above the mid inguinal point. And the inferior epigastric artery is a guide to the deep inguinal ring, as the ring lies lateral to the beginning of the artery. Okay, so from this relation you have to identify the deep ring. 1.25 centimeter above the mid inguinal point and lateral to the inferior epigastric artery. Next, we are going to the boundaries of the inguinal canal. Very important for your long question. Boundaries of the inguinal canal. So, inguinal canal has four boundaries: anterior wall, posterior wall, roof, and floor. Anterior wall, it is in its whole length formed by the skin, superficial fossa, external oblique aponeurosis. And anterior wall in its lateral one third, it is formed by fleshy fibers of the internal oblique in addition to these above three structures. Okay. And posterior wall, it is in its whole length formed by the fossa transversalis, extraperitoneal connective tissue, and parietal peritoneum. And the posterior wall in the medial two third is formed by conjoint tendon and reflected part of the inguinal ligament. Okay. So these are the two walls. Next, we are going to the roof. Roof is formed by the arched fibers of the internal oblique and transversus abdominis muscles. Okay, and floor is formed by the grooved upper surface of the inguinal ligament and upper surface of lacunar ligament in the medial end of the canal. You have seen in the previous picture the inguinal ligament and the lacunar ligament forming the floor of the inguinal canal. Next are the structures passing canal. This is very frequently given in your OSPI question, Viva, MCQ. Okay, structure passing through the inguinal canal. In male, spermatic cord and ilioinguinal nerve, and in female, round ligament of uterus and the ilioinguinal nerve. These are the structures passing through the inguinal canal. Next, see here, this is inguinal canal. So, floor is formed by the inguinal ligament, roof is formed by the arched fibers of these two muscles, internal oblique and transversus abdominis. Anterior wall is formed by the skin, superficial fossa, external oblique aponeurosis, and posterior wall is formed by the fossa transversalis. Okay. So see the relations. Here also you will see this is from anterior to posterior. Here is the deep ring and here is the superficial ring. So anterior to posterior lies the skin. Yellow colored one is the superficial fossa containing the fatty layer, and here is the external oblique muscle and aponeurosis, internal oblique and transversus abdominis muscles joining to form the conjoint tendon, forming the arched fibers are forming the roof, conjoint tendon is forming the posterior wall, and here is the fossa transversalis which is forming the posterior wall of the canal. Okay. And this deep inguinal ring, it is the opening in the fossa transversalis, and the contents, here is the spermatic cord. You can see along the spermatic cord this muscle and fossa layer are extending as the this external oblique aponeurosis is extending as the external spermatic fossa. Internal oblique and transversus abdominis extending as cremasteric fossa. And fossa transversalis is extending as internal spermatic fossa. They are forming a covering around the spermatic cord and around the testis. Okay, understood? Next, see here, this is conjoint tendon has been shown. These are the arched fibers of the internal oblique and transversus abdominis, inguinal ligament, and this is the covering of fossa transversalis over the spermatic cord. Okay, and this midline structure is the linea alba. Here, posterior wall have been shown. This is formed by fossa transversalis, within which the deep inguinal ring is forming, which is lying lateral to the inferior epigastric vessels. Okay. Next, see here in this section you can see the structures very clearly. So this is superficial inguinal ring. Okay, triangular in section, and through it comes out the spermatic cord and also the ilioinguinal nerve. So anterior boundary is formed by the external oblique aponeurosis, and in the lateral 2/3 the internal oblique and some part of the transversus abdominis. Then these two muscles are arching above the spermatic cord and forming the roof of the canal and forming the posterior wall by joining to form the conjoint tendon in the medial 1/3 of the posterior wall of the inguinal canal. And posterior to it lies the fossa transversalis. Here, this one fossa transversalis, and here lies the deep inguinal ring, and then lies the extraperitoneal fatty tissue, parietal peritoneum, like this. Okay, and deep to the inguinal line, and this external oblique aponeurosis at its lower end, it is forming the inguinal ligament, which is forming the floor of the canal. Floor of the canal, and deep to the inguinal ligament passes this femoral vessels. External iliac vessel continues downward as the femoral vessels. Okay. So these relations are important. Next, so schematic diagram. See, these are the anterior structure, these are posterior structure, and the bluish area is the inguinal canal. Deep inguinal ring, superficial inguinal ring. Deep ring is formed in fossa transversalis. Okay, and this is continuing as the internal spermatic fossa. Then here is the external oblique aponeurosis, anterior most, and the lateral 2/3 internal oblique, lateral 1/3 transversus abdominis. And they are joining to form the conjoint tendon, which is forming posterior boundary of the medial half of the canal, and here posterior boundary is also formed by reflected part of the inguinal ligament. Okay, and see this superficial ring is triangular and deep ring is rounded or oval in shape. Next, so these are the summarization of the inguinal canal and its boundaries. So anterior boundary, it is formed by the skin, superficial fossa and external oblique aponeurosis. And posterior wall, it is formed by the, in its whole length, fossa transversalis, extraperitoneal fatty tissue, and the parietal peritoneum. And in the medial to third, it is formed by conjoint tendon, reflected part of the inguinal ligament. Okay, so these are anterior, posterior boundary. Roof is formed by arched frontal oblique and transversus abdominis muscles. Floor is formed by the inguinal ligament and lacunar ligament. Structures passing through the canal is in male, it is spermatic cord and ilioinguinal nerve, and female round ligament of uterus and ilioinguinal nerve. So these are the contents. Okay. Next. These boundaries and contents are very frequently given long question. Okay. Next. The spermatic cord or round ligament of uterus, they enter the canal through the deep inguinal ring and traverses the entire length of the canal and exits through the superficial inguinal ring. Okay. And the ilioinguinal nerve, which root value is L1. This nerve enters the inguinal canal by piercing the internal oblique muscle about 2.5 centimeter below and medial to the anterior superior iliac spine. That's why the ilioinguinal nerve is called partial content. Okay, partial content of the inguinal canal, because it is not traversing whole of the length of the canal, and it runs anterior to the spermatic cord and exits the inguinal canal through the superficial inguinal ring. So these are the structures passing through the deep and superficial inguinal ring in males and female. Okay. First, the deep inguinal ring, structures passing in male and female. Male, there is ductus deferens, obliterated remnant of processus vaginalis, which is extension of the parietal peritoneum. Testicular artery, pampiniform plexus of veins, genital branch of genitofemoral nerve, and lymphatics. And in female, two changes are there. There is round ligament of uterus, obliterated remnants of the processus vaginalis, which is same, and genital branch of genitofemoral nerve and lymphatics. These are also present in male. And these two are extra in male, testicular artery and pampiniform plexus of veins. Okay. And superficial inguinal ring, through it passes the spermatic cord and ilioinguinal nerve in male, and round ligament of uterus and ilioinguinal nerve in female. Okay. So these are the structures passing through the two rings. Next. These structures passings are important for your Viva and MCQs. Okay. Next, we are going to spermatic cord. This can also come as a short note. Spermatic cord. Spermatic cord is the cord-like structure that is present in the male, formed by the vas deferens and its covering, and it extends from deep inguinal ring to the each testis. A spermatic cord is about 16 millimeter thick, and these are the contents of the spermatic cord. First is ductus deferens or vas deferens. Arteries are the testicular artery, cremasteric artery, and artery to the ductus deferens. Veins are the pampiniform plexus of veins, lymphatics mainly from the testes, and nerves are the genital branch of genitofemoral nerve and sympathetic nerves around the vessels. And there are also remnants of the processus vaginalis. So all these are contents of the spermatic cord. And coverings of the spermatic cord, it is covered from within outward by these three layer of fossa. First is internal spermatic fossa, which is derived from fossa transversalis. Cremasteric fossa with loops of cremastar muscle derived from internal oblique and transversus abdominis muscle. And external spermatic fossa derived from external oblique aponeurosis. Okay. So these three layers are the covering of the spermatic cord. Next. And this is also important, which muscle and aponeurosis is forming these three layers of fossa: internal spermatic fossa, cremasteric fossa, external spermatic fossa. Okay. Next, so this is a section through the spermatic cord. See the three coverings: internal spermatic fossa, cremasteric fossa, external spermatic fossa. These are the three coverings of the cord. And here are the content: ductus deferens or vas deferens, which is a star-shaped lumen. And here is the artery to vas or artery to ductus deferens. And this is remnant of the processus vaginalis, the yellow colored dotted structure. And these are the sections of pampiniform plexus of veins. And here are the testicular artery, and surrounding the artery there is sympathetic nerve plexus. Okay. And in between the internal spermatic fossa and cremasteric fossa, here lies the cremasteric artery and vein, and outside the cremasteric fossa lies the genital branch of the genitofemoral nerve. Okay, so these are the contents and different coverings of the spermatic cord. So if spermatic cord comes as a short note, you practice a schematic diagram like this. Okay, understood. So the ductus deferens carries the sperm from epididymis to the ejaculatory ducts, and the testicular artery, these branches, it is branch of which artery, all these are asked in your viva question. Okay, content of the spermatic cord important for your viva and OSPE, and also important for MCQs, which artery is branch of which artery. So testicular artery is branch of abdominal aorta, cremasteric artery is branch of inferior epigastric artery, and artery to the ductus deferens is a branch of inferior vesical artery. Okay. And lymphatics from the testis get drained into the pre and para-aortic lymph nodes. Okay. Next. Next, we are going to mechanism to maintain the integrity of the inguinal canal. Okay, these valve mechanisms, all those. So this is also important for your theory. Okay, you will be asked about the boundaries of the inguinal canal and this mechanism for maintaining the integrity of the canal. So due to the weakness at the inguinal canal, herniation of the abdominal viscera may occur, and it is naturally prevented by the defensive mechanism. So all defensive mechanism of inguinal canal is important, and that maintains the integrity of the inguinal canal, and these mechanisms include this flap valve mechanism, guards of the inguinal ring, Sutter mechanism, slit valve, and ball valve mechanism. Okay. Next, so we'll discuss the mechanisms in details. First is the flap valve mechanism. Inguinal canal is an oblique passage, as the superficial and deep inguinal rings do not lie opposite to each other. Okay, hence increased intra-abdominal pressure approximates the anterior and posterior valves of the inguinal canal and closes the canal like a flap. So this is flap valve mechanism. Anterior and posterior wall is approximating. Okay, like this, the internal oblique and transversus abdominis is arched fibers are forming the roof of the canal. And when these two muscles are contracting, the arched fiber will approximate with the floor. That is along with the inguinal ligament. So roof and floor are approximating. That is known as Sutter mechanism. Okay. Another is guards of the inguinal ring. The superficial inguinal ring is guarded posteriorly by the conjoint tendon and reflected part of the inguinal ligament, and deep inguinal ring is guarded anteriorly by the fleshy fibers of the internal oblique muscle. Next, we are going to slit valve mechanism. The contraction of the external oblique muscle approximates the two crura, forming the margin of the superficial inguinal ring like a slit. So that is slit valve mechanism. And ball valve mechanism, the cremasteric plug. Contraction of the cremaster muscle pulls the testis upward and plugs the superficial inguinal ring with the testis. That is ball valve mechanism. And other factors are hormones play an important role on maintaining the tone of the abdominal muscles, and interfoveolar ligament maintains the integrity of the canal by strengthening the fossa transversalis. And how the interfoveolar ligament is formed. Some fibers of the transversus abdominis muscle arch down from its lower border to the superior ramus of the pubis and constitute the interfoveolar ligament, and it forms the functional medial edge of the deep inguinal ring, this interfoveolar ligament. Okay, next. So these are the mechanisms of integrity of the inguinal canal. First is flap valve mechanism due to obliquity of the inguinal canal, and guarding of the inguinal ring. Superficial inguinal ring is guarded posteriorly by conjoint tendon, and deep inguinal ring is guarded by fleshy fibers of the internal oblique anteriorly. Sutter mechanism is triple relation of internal oblique. Internal oblique is lying anteriorly in the lateral half and forming the arched fibers, forming the roof and forming the posterior wall in the medial half of the inguinal canal. So due to this formation, Sutter mechanism occurs, and slit valve mechanism. This is contraction of the external oblique will close the superficial ring by approximation of the two crura. And ball valve mechanism, it is plug action of the cremaster muscle. Okay, this cremaster muscle will contract and pull the testis upward to plug the superficial inguinal ring. Next. So inguinal canal develops due to differentiation of the anterior abdominal wall across the inguinal fold of peritoneum around the gubernaculum of testis or ovary, and the fibrous band of the gubernaculum extends from caudal end of the developing gonad to the labioscrotal swelling. And due to the growth of the pelvis and relative less growth of the gubernaculum, the inguinal canal expands lateralward, and the inguinal canal is formed before the descent of the testis. Okay. Next. Next, we are going to Hasselbalch triangle or inguinal triangle. This is also important short note. Hasselbalch triangle. It is situated deep to the posterior wall of the inguinal canal and can be seen from inner aspect to the lower part of the anterior abdominal wall. These are the boundaries. See, this is the Hasselbalch triangle. Medial boundary is formed by lateral border of rectus abdominis. See, this one is rectus abdominis. So, lateral border of rectus abdominis is forming medial boundary. And lateral boundary is formed by inferior epigastric artery, and inferior boundary is formed by medial half of the inguinal ligament, and floor is covered by the peritoneum, extraperitoneal connective tissue and fossa transversalis. Okay, so these are the boundaries of the Hasselbalch triangle. Next. Next, there are two divisions of the Hasselbalch triangle. The median umbilical ligament, see dotted structure represents the obliterated umbilical artery and which is lying forming the medial umbilical ligament. It is dividing the triangle into medial part and lateral part, and the floor of the triangle in the medial part is supported by the conjoint tendon, and the floor of the triangle in the lateral part is weak, hence the direct inguinal hernia occurs through this lateral part. Okay, so direct inguinal hernia occurs through this Hasselbalch triangle, and among these two parts, lateral part is more weak and lateral part is the most common sites for occurring of the direct inguinal hernia. Okay, next. So Hasselbalch triangle definition situated deep to the posterior wall of inguinal canal in the lower part of the anterior abdominal wall, and these are the boundaries: medial boundary, rectus abdominis; lateral boundary, inferior epigastric artery, inferiorly bounded by medial half of inguinal ligament. Floor is formed by peritoneum and fossa transversalis. And these are the two divisions. It is divided by the medial umbilical ligament into medial part and lateral part. Okay, next. Next, we are going to the hernia. Hernias are individually comes as a short note: direct inguinal hernia, indirect inguinal hernia, femoral hernia like this. They can individually come as a short note or can come as a part of the long question along with the inguinal canal. Okay. So, and coverings of hernia is important. Coverings you can remember if you know the different structures forming different walls of the inguinal canal. Okay. So, hernia is a abnormal protrusion. Definition of hernia is asked in your Viva table. What is hernia? So, hernia is a abnormal protrusion of the abdominal content through the abdominal wall. Hernia may be of two types, external hernia, internal hernia. External hernia, there is protrusion of the contents of the abdomen outside the abdominal cavity, that is external hernia. And internal hernia is protrusion of the abdominal content into a space within the abdominal cavity. Okay. Next is composition of the hernia. Hernia consists of these following parts. It has a sac, hernial sac. Hernial sac is protrusion of the peritoneum and the sac has a narrow neck and expanded body. And contents, it may consist of coils of the intestine, omentum or other abdominal viscera. And coverings of the hernia, they consist of different layers of the abdominal wall, the flat muscles, fossa transversalis, all those. Next. Okay. So, different types of external abdominal hernia. External abdominal hernias are of these types. Congenital umbilical hernia. It occurs due to failure of midgut loop to return to the abdominal cavity. Okay, which is a part of physiological hernia, which occurs in utero. Acquired infantile umbilical hernia occurs due to weakness of the umbilical scar and it may disappear as the infant grows. Paraumbilical hernia is also known as belly button hernia, occurs due to the protrusion of the intestinal coils through the linea alba surrounding the umbilicus. And femoral hernia is the protrusion of abdominal contents through the femoral canal and it is more common in female due to the wider pelvis. Next is epigastric hernia. It occurs through the anterior abdominal wall in the epigastric region. Next is external abdominal hernia, other external abdominal hernias. Petit's hernia occurs in the Petit's or lumbar triangle, okay, on the posterolateral abdominal wall. Next is Spiegel's hernia, occurs at the junction of linea semilunaris and the arcuate line. Linea semilunaris is lateral margin of the rectus abdominis and arcuate line is lower margin of the fossa transversalis. At the junction of these two, Spiegel's hernia occurs. Incisional hernia. This is very frequently you will get patients of incisional hernia. Occurs through incompletely healed surgical wound of the abdominal wall. Okay. Inguinal hernia is the protrusion of abdominal content in the inguinal canal. We will read it in details. Inguinal hernia. Next. See here, femoral hernia has been shown. The abdominal contents here, gut loop has been protruding through the femoral canal first. Then it is protruding through the saphenous opening and protruding these are the covering of the femoral hernia. First is skin, superficial fossa, then cribriform fascia, then femoral sheath, and here is the peritoneum. Okay, and after coming out through the cribriform opening, it will extend upward. This arrow is showing the direction of herniation. Okay, and it will lie on the upper medial part of the thigh, the hernial contents. Next, see here, so this is showing the femoral hernia coming through the femoral canal and it is lying posterior to the inguinal ligament. And this is inguinal hernia, this is indirect inguinal hernia coming out through the deep inguinal ring, passing through the inguinal canal and it is lying anterior to the inguinal ligament and also passing out through the superficial inguinal ring entering into the scrotal sac. Okay. Okay, next. So inguinal hernia, it is protrusion of abdominal content in the inguinal canal. It is called inguinal hernia. It is of two types, indirect and direct inguinal hernia. Indirect inguinal hernia, if the abdominal contents enter through the deep inguinal ring in the inguinal canal, it is called indirect inguinal hernia. And indirect inguinal hernia may be of two types, congenital and acquired. Congenital indirect inguinal hernia occurs due to persistent processus vaginalis and that connect the peritoneal cavity with the tunica vaginalis from abdomen to scrotum. This is the extent of the processus vaginalis. An acquired indirect inguinal hernia occurs due to increased intra-abdominal pressure as in weightlifting. Okay. Next. So this is indirect inguinal hernia, entry of abdominal content in inguinal canal through deep inguinal ring. Two types, congenital, acquired. Congenital due to persistent processus vaginalis. Acquired is due to increased intra-abdominal pressure. Features, it is common in children and young adults in male and lies lateral to the inferior epigastric artery, location of deep inguinal ring, and it is commoner than the direct inguinal hernia. Indirect is more common. Coverings are this: peritoneum, extraperitoneal fatty tissue, internal spermatic fossa, cremasteric fossa, external spermatic fossa, and skin. Next. So features of indirect inguinal hernia, it is common in children and young adult. Entry of hernial sac lies lateral to the inferior epigastric artery, more common than the direct inguinal hernia, and it is more common in male. And these are the coverings of the indirect inguinal hernia. From within outside are the parietal peritoneum and extraperitoneal connective tissue, internal spermatic fossa, cremasteric fossa, external spermatic fossa, and skin. Next. See here the coverings. This is indirect inguinal hernia. See the hernial content is entering through the deep inguinal ring. See the covering from inside outward. This is parietal peritoneum, then extraperitoneal connective tissue, then internal spermatic fossa, cremasteric fossa, external spermatic fossa, and skin and the subcutaneous tissue. Okay, so these are the covering from inside outward. And see the external spermatic fossa is formed by external oblique, cremasteric fossa is formed by transversus abdominis internal oblique, and fossa transversalis is forming the internal spermatic fossa. Okay. Next. Next, we are going to direct inguinal hernia. So, if the abdominal contents enter the inguinal canal through its posterior wall, it is called direct inguinal hernia. More common in elderly, where the weakness of the abdominal wall occurs. Entry of hernial sac lies medial to the inferior epigastric artery through the Hasselbalch triangle, and direct inguinal hernia is more common in female. These are the two direct inguinal hernia, two varieties. Lateral direct hernia occurs through the lateral part of Hasselbalch triangle, lateral to the medial umbilical ligament or obliterated umbilical artery. And covering of the lateral direct inguinal hernia is parietal peritoneum and extraperitoneal connective tissue, fossa transversalis, cremasteric fossa, external spermatic fossa, and the skin. Next. And medial direct inguinal hernia, it occurs through the medial part of the Hasselbalch triangle, medial to the medial umbilical ligament. And these are the coverings: parietal peritoneum and extraperitoneal connective tissue, fossa transversalis, conjoint tendon, external spermatic fossa, and skin. Okay. Next. See here, this is lateral direct inguinal hernia, lateral to the obliterated umbilical artery, but medial to the inferior epigastric. And this is medial direct hernia, medial to the obliterated umbilical artery. Okay. See the coverings of lateral direct inguinal hernia from inside outward: parietal peritoneum, then fossa transversalis, cremasteric fossa, external spermatic fossa, and skin. And for covering of medial direct inguinal hernia, you will get parietal peritoneum, fossa transversalis, conjoint tendon, external spermatic fossa and skin. The third one is changing, rest are same. Here it is cremasteric fossa, here it is conjoint tendon. Okay, understood? Next. So direct inguinal hernia definition, it entry of abdominal content in the inguinal canal through its posterior wall. And features, it is common in elderly, lies medial to the inferior epigastric artery, more common in the females. Divided into two types, lateral and medial. Lateral occurs through lateral part of Hesselsbach triangle, and these are the coverings: peritoneum, extraperitoneal fat, fossa transversalis, cremasteric fossa, external spermatic fossa, skin. And medial occurs through the medial part of Hesselsbach triangle, and these are the coverings. All are same except the conjoint tendon. Okay. Next. Next is treatment for hernia. Treatment for hernia depends on the cause of hernia, its signs, symptoms, and the complications. Okay. Uh, Herniorrhaphy is done. Herniorrhaphy is the surgical repair of the hernia or weakening of the surgical repair of the weakening of the abdominal wall. Mesh repair is done. Okay, polypropylene mesh is placed at the hernial site. And ilioinguinal nerve and iliohypogastric nerves may get damaged in herniorrhaphy operation. Okay, so you have to be careful to prevent injury to this nerve, which are lying in close relation to the hernial location. Okay, understood? Okay, so any queries from these topics? So these different types of hernia, their coverings, how they occurs, common symptoms are important. Very frequently given clinical aspect. Okay. Inguinal canal prepare as a long question, and inguinal ligament is short note. Hasselbeck triangle is another short note. The two rings, superficial deep inguinal rings are short notes, and these hernias can individually come as a short note.